Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene, a flash update, January 14, 2026, time in Texas, about 3 p.m. Some of the things we'll cover. The U.S. Appears to be actively in war prep. We're seeing a cell phone outage. We're seeing an FBI raid the home of a Washington Post reporter. We're seeing President Trump taking action and words intending to take action against taking Greenland. We see Nato now turning on the U.S. Tim Walz will be impeached, and it appears that a hit by the U.S. and Israel may occur tonight. So let's get started. We have this going on, BREITBART. So Tuesday night, we had a search warrant from the DOJ at the request of the Department of War to search the home of Washington Post reporter Hannah Nato, who it's believed was receiving classified military information from a U.S. military contractor, Aurelio Perez Luganes. This contractor was from Maryland. He was a cyber expert, a system administrator, and the FBI also raided his home and office and found classified documents in both his lunchbox and at his home basement. If you hear that, that's my cat protesting something. So that's going on. We know as a nation prepares to engage in military conflicts that there is a heightened awareness of protecting classified information, and we're seeing today a cell phone outage. I submit that's part of the military's clampdown in its prep to begin military operations. We know most likely against Iran and possibly against Greenland. So we had a statement this morning by the DOJ Pam Bondi regarding the search warrant and the FBI raid on the Washington Post reporter's home, as well as the information coming out about the military contractor who was passing classified information and documents to the Washington Post reporter. So that's going on. And we have this. So I put forth in my previous video today regarding the Federal Reserve that is not a part of the U.S. government, but is controlled out of the UK City of London Deep State Financial Center. And it appears that the Deep State is worried about the actions President Trump is taking against the Fed. We know Sunday night, the leader of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, made a public statement about a subpoena he had received from the DOJ. And as I put forth, he had been called before Congress to give Congress additional information about $1 billion lost or not known where it was regarding a renovation of the Federal Reserve building. The subpoena, however, does not address money for the building, but rather Jerome Powell is being indicted for lying to Congress. And we see the Deep State Financial Center that's over the Federal Reserve and other central banks inside the U.S. and other nations is worried that the American people are now going to realize that the Federal Reserve is not a part of the U.S. government, but is controlled by a foreign group of individuals out of the city of London. So that's going on. And we have this. We have that the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, we're familiar with the information that's come out in the past weeks about the billion dollar fraud, primarily by Somali nationals, that took place inside the state of Minnesota, and that there had been a concerted and detailed and documented cover-up by the governor on down. Now, the Congress of Minnesota has brought 4 articles of impeachment against Governor Walz, and I've been hearing for weeks that Walz would be forced to resign this current second term. We know he declined to run for a third term. Some of the things he's being charged with by the Congress in their articles of impeachment is that he allowed the fraud to continue even after he had many reliable, credible warnings, and that he engaged in a cover-up of the fraud, and that he allowed Minnesota government agencies to continue the fraud. So that's going on. And we have this from W77. Yes, there's been a major outage today of multiple cell phone companies, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile Plus. I submit that this is part of the U.S. government's prep for military conflict, and that there is a top-down operation now regarding cell phone calls. The cell phones apparently can still send text, but they cannot make phone calls. And we have this from Dr. William Mount. President Trump has his actions have slowed inflation in the U.S., and this is coming out. The U.S. Post Office today just came out that they will no longer accept cash, only, credit or debit card payments. And last Thursday, we became aware that the U.S. Post Office had put out a letter to its workers and contractors to carry the letter with them and also their ID in the event that the U.S. goes to a lockdown, so they could ID themselves as essential workers to law enforcement. We're seeing a currency collapse in Venezuela and Ukraine. And the question now is, what's going to come about with President Trump's moves against the Federal Reserve with regard to the U.S. currency? That is unknown. And we have this. Yes, regarding Greenland. Before the Greenland meeting, President Trump this morning on Truth Social posted that the U.S. needs Greenland for American security, and that any other option is unacceptable. And now we hear NATO has turned against the U.S., and many nations in NATO are sending their military, to protect Greenland from the U.S. military. This includes Denmark, Sweden, France, and Germany. And as I said, I don't believe the combined militaries could stand up to one battle against the U.S. military. And we have this. So there was a meeting today. J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff with the foreign ministers from Greenland and Denmark regarding the U.S. taking Greenland. And Hal Turner's intel is that when the meeting was over with, and oh yes, one other thing, before the meeting, so in the morning, President Trump posted on Truth Social, the U.S. needs Greenland for U.S. security. Before the meeting also, President Trump contacted Rutte, the leader of NATO, for NATO to send in military forces to remove the Denmark military from Greenland. So then, we had the meeting, and when the meeting was over with and the foreign ministers from Greenland and Denmark came out of the meeting, they looked visibly angry. And they went on to make a public press statement that they were in disagreement with the U.S. So now we see Rutte, leader of NATO, turning against the U.S. Apparently, he received this phone call from President Trump, then advised all the other NATO members. And now a group of European nations are sending their militaries to Greenland. What are they going to do against the U.S. military? And that would include Denmark, Sweden, France, Germany. So that's going on. And we can look for the U.S. military to also be actively engaged, I believe, in taking Greenland. Now, these foreign ministers from Greenland and Denmark both told President Trump, lying straight to his face, that there was no danger of China and Russia taking Greenland. And yet, as I brought out, the Denmark Intel Service released an intel report stating that both China and Russia had plans to take Greenland by force. So, way to go, President Trump. We need to take Greenland now. And we have this from Alex CHRISTOFEROU regarding Greenland, that the discussion about Greenland is not over. Not by a long shot. Now we see them sending their militaries. And we have this about Iran. Also intel, U.S. intel, today, a little bit ago, that an Israeli brigadier general had made a statement regarding Iran, that it's highly likely that the U.S. and Israel will strike Iran. Other sources are coming out and saying possibly tonight. So that would go along with the cell phone outage we're seeing in the U.S. And we're hearing reports about what's going on in Iran. Elites are evacuating. Iran military has thousands of defections. In other words, soldiers in the Iranian military are leaving the military and siding with the people. And the police force is divided. Half are with the government and half are with the people. The Ayatollah and the mullahs are hidden away in an underground bunker on the east side of Iran, bordering Afghanistan. So it's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.